everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is inspired by YouTube's annual Rewind video. This is a video that they put out every single year identifying some of their top creators and basically covering some of the coolest or biggest highlights that the platform has experienced. Some years the video is awesome and in other years it's not. It was either last year or the year before where YouTube's Rewind video became the most unliked video on the platform. That's all to say that I wanted to do a bit of a beauty rewind with you and basically revisit some of the best and worst products of this past year. I am going to try to keep it to 2019, but apologies if a 2018 or a 2017 product happens to slip in. I don't always keep track of when products are released, but I have tried to keep it to the past year. I think there have been a record number of new releases and launches this past year. We have seen so many eyeshadow palettes, foundations, blushes, highlighters, eyeliners, lipsticks, you name it, it launched this past year. And I think I can speak for everyone when I say I think we've been experiencing a beauty overload. And so I am taking it upon myself to let you guys know what I really enjoy in my makeup collection and what I don't. And I wanted to break it down according to a category because I thought it would be more digestible than just doing one single video of the best of beauty and another video with the worst of beauty. I'll be starting off with the best primers and then we're going to be ending with the worst primers because I definitely don't want the negativity at the beginning of the video. We can focus on it a little bit later on and I'll let you know what you can save your money on. Actually, before I dive into all of the products, I do want to let you guys know what my skin type is because I think that can also impact one's purchasing decisions. And take everything I say with a grain of salt because everybody's skin is different and will react differently to different products. I'm just going to be telling you what worked for me and my skin type. I primarily have oily skin and year-round that remains pretty consistent except during the winter where my skin does tend to change a little bit and becomes more combination just because of the cold weather. So my T-zone generally remains oily whereas the rest of my face, especially around the perimeter, does become a little bit drier. In terms of other issues, I do have enlarged pores. I have rosacea in this area over here. I struggle with texture, acne, and acne scarring. If you share the same skin type as I do and worry about the same type of skin issues, then I think you might agree or perhaps disagree, who knows, with all of the products that I'm going to talk about today. To start off the best primers, I've got to give it to the primer that I've been using every single day since I purchased it, and it's the Catrice 1 Minute Face Perfector. I have loved what this primer has done for my skin. It fills in all of my pores, it gives me such a smooth canvas to work with, and my foundation goes on flawlessly after. It does have a mousse-like texture and I strongly recommend you just use your fingers to pat this into your skin or gently swirl it in. I also like to use this primer on no makeup days just because of the smooth canvas that it gives me, and I've also noticed that it has helped decrease some of the redness on my skin. So it does help me feel a little more confident when I'm walking out the door with no armor on my face. The other great thing about this primer is that it is accessible at the drugstore and it is really affordable, and I think this is one of the best primers that I have used all year. Next up, I have to talk about my Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer. I originally received a small sample of this when I purchased a mini Tatcha something or other. I can't remember what it was, but it came with this small little primer here and I loved it. I used it all up and it did wonders for my skin. My makeup went on flawlessly, it stayed on a lot longer, which I really appreciated, and it filled in my pores really well. As you can see, I have dug into this primer quite a bit, but it has taken a bit of a backseat to my Catrice primer at the moment, but I still absolutely love this. I know the price point is quite expensive, but you need so little of this product to cover your entire face that this big jug here is gonna last you for a long time. If you don't want to invest in the large size, I highly recommend you pick up the smaller size, price, which I think in Canada is around $25-ish, something like that, whereas this big boy here is about 60 something dollars. Moving forward, I think I'm only going to purchase these small primers just because this is only good for 6 months once it is open. So I can see that with my larger tub here, it is starting to dry out a little bit around the edges. So I know I have to start digging back into it, but this primer here is such a good one. I highly recommend it, and it's definitely one of the best primers of 2019 in my opinion. Another primer that I adore comes from Dior. This is the Backstage primer. It's for your face as well as for your body, and I think it does such a good job of giving you a smooth canvas to work with. It fills in your pores beautifully. It leaves your skin feeling just a little bit tacky enough to basically allow your makeup to grip to this primer. I think it wears really well throughout the day, and I love the packaging. It is very durable. It comes in a plastic bottle. You can easily squeeze out the product, and a little bit of this will go a long way. Another recent discovery that I've enjoyed as a primer is this one here from Tatcha and Sol. This is the No Poreblem. Jeffree Star used to talk about this quite a bit when he first got it. He said it was one of the best primers he's ever worked with, aside from his Sicily ridiculously expensive primer that no one can really afford. But this one here does have a pretty affordable price point. I have noticed it in Winners or TJ Maxx or Marshalls. Recently, I picked mine up for $12.99, and it doesn't expire until 2022, so it's got a really decent shelf life. I like the way that it fills in my pores. It does hydrate my skin. It's got a nice slip to it, but for my oily skin, I think it's just a little too hydrating and a little too slippery, so my makeup does tend to shift a little bit faster than with some of the other primers that I've talked about in the best of category. That's not to say this primer is awful. I still really enjoy using it, but I think people with normal to dry skin, even combination skin, would love this primer a lot more than somebody with oily skin, for example. Another primer that has been a long time favorite of mine is this one here from L'Oreal. This is the Infallible Matte Lock Primer. I love using this primer because it preps my skin so well, smooths everything out, and most importantly, it is mattifying. So if I do want to wear a foundation that does have more of a natural or a satin finish rather than something that is going to be mattifying, I definitely work with this particular primer here because I want to keep the oils at bay as much as possible. Obviously, L'Oreal is available at the drugstore, but I do find this particular primer, at least in Canada, does have a slightly higher price point than what I would typically expect from L'Oreal. This one here was originally priced at $18.99 at Shoppers Drug Mart. I think the Superstore also had it for a similar price, but I have been able to find it at Walmart for around $12.99, sometimes even less if it goes on sale. And the last primer that I am going to put in the best of category comes from CoverGirl. This is the TruBlend Base Business Pore Minimizing Primer. It does have a purple color to it, but the minute you blend it into your skin, that dissipates completely, and this does such a great job of filling in your pores. If you don't have that much money to spend on a primer, I highly recommend this one. It says this is supposed to be a mattifying primer as well, but I don't find it to be as mattifying. But what I do is I use a matte setting spray when I'm using this primer, and it works perfectly. For the worst of primers, I have 4 that I'm gonna talk about, and I don't want to say they're the absolute worst primers, you shouldn't spend your money on them, but they didn't work for me the way I had anticipated them to. That's why they're in this particular category. And the first primer I'm going to talk about is this one here from Milani. This is the Instant Touch-Up Blur Stick. When I initially bought this, I thought, oh, amazing, a stick primer. Maybe this is going to be like my Estee Edit primer, which I really loved back in the day. When I saw this, I had high hopes and I thought it might give me similar results, but instead it left my skin feeling so incredibly greasy. Does the primer fill in your pores? Sure. Does it do it as well as some of the best primers that I just talked about? No, I don't think it does. Instead, it leaves my skin feeling rather greasy. My foundation tends to slip quite a bit, and it's not really mattifying for me. So unfortunately, this is a pass for me, and that's why it's in my worst of category. The next primer I'm going to talk about is one that I really tried to like, especially because of how much money I spent on it, and it just wasn't in the cards for me. There are so many other better primers that I like that this one here just didn't make the cut. And it does come from Guerlain, which is one of my favorite makeup brands out there, and skincare companies, of course. This is the Pore Correcting Treatment, and it's more of a gel type formula. It doesn't necessarily fill in your pores the same way my Catrice primer does, or the way my Tatcha primer does, or heck, anything in my great category. I feel like instead this leaves a bit of a film over your skin, and then you can apply your makeup on top. It does remain tacky for a little bit, but if you wait too long, it just dries into this smooth, sort of filmy thing on top of your skin, and then your makeup doesn't apply as well as it would if you probably applied it immediately after applying this sucker. It just wasn't fantastic for me, and for the price point, I think you can definitely get better primers, and that's why it's in my not so good category. I have another primer from Guerlain, and it actually hurts me to put this one in this category because I used to love it, but the price tag of this primer is just so ridiculous, and it doesn't do nearly as much as some of my more affordable primers in my best of category. And unfortunately, it's this one here. This is the L'Or primer. This is the Radiance Concentrate with Pure Gold. I used to have the big bottles. I went through 2 of them, and then I ended up getting this as a sample in one of my Sephora orders. I like this primer, but it doesn't really do anything for my skin. In terms of radiance, it doesn't necessarily enhance my skin in any way. It doesn't look luminous just by using this primer. I also find the gold in the primer doesn't necessarily do my skin any favors. There's no crazy firming properties the way it is sort of marketed to the general public, and I used to think it was firming back in the day. Like, my skin felt a lot tighter, but I'm not really seeing that anymore. I think my skin has just changed over the years, and so I don't think this is worth the $100 price tag that it has. It's just not something I would consider investing in again. It doesn't do enough. Doesn't really fill in my pores, doesn't mattify my skin, so why the heck would I spend money on this? And the last primer I'm gonna talk about is this one here from Milk Makeup. This is the Hydro Grip primer. I am so glad I only invested in the small tube. I didn't want to spend the money on the larger one. Obviously, I didn't know if I was gonna like it or not. And I used this for a few weeks just to see how well it would work with my foundations. And I remember strongly disliking it because it didn't do my skin any favors. After applying the primer, I did notice that it left my skin feeling quite tacky, and my foundation would certainly adhere to the tacky base really well. But I found throughout the day, things just became really slippery, and my makeup started to break up quite a bit. And this was with some of the best foundations that I have. And so I attributed the lack of great wear to this particular primer. It didn't really fill in my pores, it didn't really mattify my skin, and it didn't really hydrate it the way some of my other primers would hydrate my skin. I'd rather just use a more dewy moisturizer than have a primer like this. I do, however, recognize that that primer is a holy grail for a lot of people, and I'm really happy that it works for some, but unfortunately for me, it doesn't work, and that's why it's in my worst of category. That is my list of the best of primers and the worst of primers for 2019. Do let me know in the comments what some of your favorite primers were of this past year, and also what are some of the primers that just didn't work out the way you had anticipated. And that's gonna do it for this video. I really hope you found it helpful. If you did, you know what to do. Give it a big thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. If you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, you can always do that by following me on all of my social media, which I will link for you in the description box below. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you are all having an amazing day no matter where you are in the world. Stay beautiful, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!